Document everything and audit regularly. Nobody likes documentation. Nobody. Nobody, except for maybe a technical writer. But nobody likes it. Everybody hates it. Nobody wants to do it. They don't keep it up to date, even if they make some, kind of half stab at it. And so, but documentation is so important, because if you are a one person shop, okay, maybe you can have your documentation in your mind. But guess what? If something happens to you, you've left the poor next guy nothing, right? Nothing. So that's a risk right there, that everything here, there's no way anybody else could know about that's terrible. So it's a huge risk to the organization. But beyond that, you're probably not a one-man show, right? There's probably multiple people. So documentation is a way to bring people together, to make sure that people understand the same things. They know the same things. They do things similarly. They have a common focus. So it's very important that you have documentation in place. It doesn't have to be click by click by click, 4,000 pages documentation, but enough so that we know what we're doing, we're on the same page, this is what we're accomplishing, and here's how we do it. And it's a much better position for the company. And then audit regularly, that's the trust but verify part. So it's great, you say you're doing that, that's wonderful. An internal audit function, for example, would come in and verify that. Like, okay, and they would start with your documentation. Like, you say that you run a vulnerability scan every month. Great. Can I please see the last scan you ran? You say that you remediate all the vulnerabilities that are critical or high within, a week. I'm making this up, whatever it is. Okay, great. Where are the tickets where you created that? Where did you do that? And then what was the remediation? Oh, you have these 3 that are outstanding. Whoopsie. Well, what's the plan for those? Oh, we forgot to add those. That's the trust but verify part. So the documentation this is the rules. This is how we're playing the game. Like, you couldn't show up at a game with your neighbors that you never played and said, okay, we're going to play the game. Well, what are we doing? What's the first question you ask? Well, what are the rules? Where's the pamphlet? Give me the pamphlet in the book. I want to read it. It's written down. It's written down for a reason, so that everybody who's playing the game knows what the rules are. And what do? You're halfway through the game, or new game at least, you're like, I don't know if you can do that. That's not right. What do? You pull out the rules. Wait a minute. Hold on. You can't do that. It says it right here. And so that's what the documentation works to do. We're all playing a game. We all need to play with the same set of rules, and so the documentation helps to do that. Then the audit comes in, internal and external both, comes in to have a second set of eyes to go, is this actually what's happening? Because it's great to write it down, it's great to think you do it, but until you verify that you do it, maybe you do, maybe you don't. And so it's the trust but verify mechanism. So very important that things are documented to help people understand the rules of the game, understand the scope of what's being targeted, and then make sure that, of course, it is audited, so it's true. I'm looking at a stat here. It says as many as, in this same article, as many as 95% of cyber attacks are preventable. Regular audits will reveal weaknesses, and that's really the name of the game here. 95% of cyber attacks are preventable. Now, this article is a few years old. I don't know if it has the date. Actually not, August 2021. So I think he's aware of the current sign of the times. So audit is a very important mechanism to really highlight those weaknesses and where things are not working. And the 5th is to plan for failure. It kind of goes back to the first one, that if you assume everything is vulnerable, if you assume the gun is loaded, then you're going to be in a much better posture. Well, this one is specifically plan that a breach is going to happen. Plan that a user is going to make a mistake. Plan that you are going to be hacked as a 0-day exploit. You will be a victim. Assume it, plan it, prepare for it. Hit it head on. Don't la 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 la. Don't want to hear this. No, don't do that. Too many companies do that. It will never happen to me. They don't know about me. They don't care about me. Oh no. SMBs, small, medium businesses, are some of the biggest targets. And there's a reason for that, because they do not have robust cyber programs. They kind of piece part, knee jerk, this, that, and the other, but they do not have comprehensive cyber programs. So there's a reason why they're a huge target of attack. And the other reason is because if I can get into an SMB that is a supplier of a larger target, I can go right up the supply chain and get to what I'm really getting to. So SMBs are huge targets. So don't make that assumption. Hit it head on. Assume it will happen so that you have your plan B in place. And then you walk through and you test that. So this is where you have your incident response plan. How are we gonna do this? This is where it has to be written down. Again, an incident happens, a security incident happens. Who's doing what? What are we doing? Who are we notifying? How are we containing it? How are we analyzing it? If we need to do forensic analysis, how are we doing that? How are we recovering from it? How are we doing all this? Okay, well, don't do that when it really happens. That's terrible. Plan for it ahead of time. And then make sure the right people are engaged and they know their responsibility and they know their role, and you have the plan. It's written down just like the rules of a game, and go. Like, this is what we're doing. Go. Make sure you know how you're going to communicate. I do tabletop exercises with companies, and one of the first thing is I ask them, okay, great, how is everybody going to get on? How are y'all going to talk to each other? And it's not uncommon to hear, what? Yeah, are you hopping on a Zoom call? Are you meeting in the same room? Like, how are you getting together? Okay, we'd be on a Zoom call. Great, what's the Zoom link? We'd send it. Okay, great, you'd send it out. Who'd you send it out to? Yeah, how do you have their phone numbers? Do you know how to reach them? What if the internet's down? How what does that look like? And so it's talking through all of that before, in the moment when you're scrambling, trying to figure it out, right? And so have that plan B in place, and walk through that plan and test it and validate it and make sure the right people have it. Make sure they know where it's at, and you've walked through that. Here's another stat here. I'm going to read you. And then refine it after you test it. Make it constantly improving. You change technologies, you buy a new tool, and update your business continuity disaster recovery plan. Like, very critical steps. Like, you're constantly refining that plan. You're keeping it a living document. In 2020, 25% of global organizations reported that server downtime would cost between $301K and $400K per hour. And so that level expense would spell disaster for many companies. And so if a business has a plan, when systems fail, they can mitigate these costs. And so that's just one example. So there you go. There are the 5 laws of cybersecurity. So let's recap those very briefly. Now, these are not the only things you would do. These are a mindset around cybersecurity as you build out your program, as you identify and mitigate those risks. These are 5 laws that are pretty much unchanging, because cybersecurity changes every 5 seconds, but these are like foundational, unchanging things. So number 1, treat everything like it's vulnerable. The gun is always loaded. If you have that in your mind, you will look for the open doors and the open windows, and you will look to shut them and close them. So treat everything like it's vulnerable. Number 2, assume people will not follow the rules, because when you assume people are not going to follow the rules and they are your weakest link, then you'll put in additional controls and additional monitoring to prepare for that, especially in your high-risk areas. If you don't need to get rid of it, you don't need to be spending resources managing something that is not really even critical or needed by the business anymore, just because nobody's gone through the exercise of cleaning that up. Likewise, you don't need assets and softwares and things out there that nobody is monitoring them because they're not using them anymore, and you don't even know they're out there. That's equally as bad. Number 4, document everything, which nobody likes. I get it, but it's like playing a game. You can't play a game if you don't know what the rules are. So documentation helps to establish the rules so that everybody playing the game, all the people that are part of it, they're all on the same page and they understand what the rules and the objectives are and what their role, their contribution to it is. So document everything and audit regularly. The other thing documentation does is it reduces the risk of somebody having all this knowledge in their head. They leave the organization, which is happening a lot these days, a lot of employee churn these days. You get it out of their head, you put it on a piece of paper, everybody can see it. It's very transparent. And then audit regularly, trust but verify. It's great that we have it written down. It's great that we think we do this, and maybe we do, but we need some sort of audit function, either an internal audit function or use an external auditor. A lot of times, companies, this is where you can pull in your SOC 2 or your ISO certification and pull those processes in to help kind of audit. But it's even better if you have an internal audit function that keeps an eye on these. So trust but verify. Yes, we have it documented. Yes, I know you say you do it, but let's take a look at it, shall we? And then find those weaknesses and fix those weaknesses before they're exploited. That's the whole point of it. And then the last one, number 5, is plan for failure. Plan to be breached. Expect it to happen to you, because the minute you don't plan for it, you're not ready for it. If you plan for it and never need it, fantastic. That's the best place to be in. But if you don't plan for it and need it, that's the worst place to be in. And let's face it, in this world, you should plan for it to happen, because the chances are it probably will, or some version of it. And if you've come up with that plan of how you're going to sustain your business through that, yes, you get breached, but how you're going to navigate that situation, and how you're going to resume operations, and how you're going to deal with the reputation with your customers, you plan all of that up front. You're ready for it. And I hope you never need it, but you're ready for it. So there are the 5 laws of cybersecurity. If you think this video will help someone, please share it to them. And I would also love to hear your feedback and your comments. Thank you so much.